The Thompson family's annual financial meeting was in full swing at Uncle Richard's estate, where success was measured in designer labels and casual displays of wealth. I sat quietly in my $100 suit from Target, watching my relatives peacock around the room. "Sarah, darling," Aunt Margaret's voice dripped with fake concern as she adjusted her Cartier bracelet. "Still wearing that interesting suit? I have some hand-me-downs that might be more appropriate for family gatherings." I smoothed down my jacket, hiding a smile. The same jacket they mocked had attended more high-level financial meetings than their entire wardrobes combined. "I'm comfortable as I am, thank you." My cousin Derek snorted from his position by the wet bar, where he was already on his second scotch despite it being barely noon. "Comfortable being broke, you mean? How's that job at the investment firm going? Still pushing papers?" If they only knew that I didn't just work at Rivera Investment Group, I owned it. But they'd never bothered to ask which firm I worked for, too busy assuming I was some low-level clerk. "Still working there," I replied mildly. "How's the trust fund, Derek?" He flushed slightly. The family knew he'd blown through half his inheritance in bad investments, but they kept up appearances. Always appearances. Now, Uncle Richard called from his leather armchair, every inch the family patriarch. "Let's focus on business. We need to discuss the family investment portfolio." Yes, the portfolio. The reason for this annual display of financial superiority. Each year, the family pooled some of their resources for joint investments, carefully managed by qualified family members, meaning anyone but me. "I've made some excellent moves this quarter," my cousin Victoria announced, flipping her designer hair. "The European markets are dash." A knock at the door interrupted her speech. "Come in," Uncle Richard called, irritated at the disruption. A courier in a crisp uniform entered, holding a thick envelope. "Delivery for Miss Sarah Thompson?" The room went quiet. No one ever received deliveries during the family financial meeting. It was considered gauche to conduct personal business during this sacred time. "That's me," I said, standing. "Your Cayman Islands quarterly statement, ma'am. Needed a signature for this one." You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Aunt Margaret's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Derek actually stopped drinking mid-sip. "Cayman Islands?" Uncle Richard's voice cracked slightly. "Sarah, what exactly dash?" "Thank you," I told the courier, signing for the envelope. I could feel every eye in the room fixed on the heavy paper in my hands. Victoria found her voice first. "Since when do you have offshore accounts? You can barely afford your rent." I opened the envelope carefully, making sure the statement was visible to those nearest me. The number at the bottom gleamed in bold black ink. $897,426,531.09. Derek choked on his scotch. "Oh my," I said softly, letting the statement fall casually on the coffee table. "Looks like my investments did quite well this quarter." The room erupted in chaos. Relatives who had been studiously ignoring me suddenly crowded around, trying to get a better look at the statement. Victoria snatched it up, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. This has to be a mistake," she stammered. "You're nobody. You just push papers at some investment firm." I stood up, straightening my Target suit. "Actually, Victoria, I own Rivera Investment Group. Have for the past 5 years. Though none of you ever bothered to ask which firm I worked for." Uncle Richard's face had gone an interesting shade of purple. "Rivera Group? The same Rivera Group that's been buying up half the properties in the financial district." "The very same," I smiled. "Amazing what you can build while people underestimate you." Aunt Margaret collapsed onto the nearest chair, her Cartier bracelet clinking against her fresh glass of champagne. But you never said anything. All these years letting us think. Letting you think exactly what you wanted to think," I finished for her. "It's amazing how much you can learn about the market when people assume you're just the help." My phone buzzed. Probably another update on our latest acquisition. But that could wait. Right now, I was enjoying watching my family's carefully constructed hierarchy crumble in real time. "The family portfolio," Derek suddenly blurted. With your experience. Now you want my help with investments?" I laughed softly. Funny how a few $100 million changes people's perspectives. The statement lay on the coffee table like a bomb that had already detonated, its aftermath still rippling through the room. Years of condescension, of snide remarks about my clothes, my job, my life choices, all obliterated by a single number. Uncle Richard cleared his throat. Sarah, perhaps we should discuss this privately. As family. I checked my watch. A simple Timex that had horrified them at last year's meeting. Actually, I have a board meeting to attend. But don't worry. I smiled at my shell-shocked relatives. I'm sure Victoria has some excellent insights about the European markets to share. As I walked toward the door, leaving chaos in my wake, I couldn't help but add one final touch. Oh, and Aunt Margaret? About those hand-me-downs. I think I'll stick with Target. After all, I gestured at my simple suit. It served me quite well so far. The door closed behind me, but not before I heard Derek's whispered question. Did anyone even know she had a Cayman Islands account? No, dear cousin. That was rather the point. The aftermath of my revelations spread through the family like wildfire. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages from relatives who'd never bothered to have my number before. I ignored them all as I sat in my office at Rivera Group's headquarters, reviewing our latest acquisition plans. The same office my family had never visited, assuming I worked in some cubicle somewhere. Miss Thompson. My assistant Grace appeared at the door. Your Uncle Richard is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you. I glanced at the security feed on my laptop. There he was, his expensive suit slightly rumpled, looking distinctly uncomfortable among the modern art and steel architecture of Rivera Group's lobby. Send him up, I said. And Grace. Hold all my calls. 5 minutes later, Uncle Richard stood in my office, his usual patriarch's confidence notably absent as he took in the corner office with its stunning city view. Nice space, he managed. Very impressive. Thank you, I replied, not offering him a seat. I assume this isn't a social call? He shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, about the family portfolio. Given your obvious expertise. You want me to manage it, I finished for him. Now that you know I'm not just pushing papers. Well, yes. Your success with Rivera Group is clearly the same success I had last year, I cut in. And the year before. When you all laughed at my investment suggestions and let Victoria handle everything because, and I quote, at least she dresses like a proper financier. He had the grace to look embarrassed. We may have been hasty in our judgments. Hasty? I smiled, pulling up some figures on my computer. Let's review those judgments, shall we? Last year, Victoria's European strategy lost the family portfolio 23%. The year before, Derek's foolproof tech investments dropped 15%. Yes, well. Meanwhile, I continued, turning my screen to show him, Rivera Group's returns have averaged 43% annually for the past 5 years. But none of you ever thought to ask what I actually did for a living. A knock at the door interrupted us. Grace entered with a stack of papers. The Singapore merger documents are ready for your signature, Ms. Thompson. And Mr. Chin from the Hong Kong office is online too. Thank you, Grace. Tell Mr. Chin I'll call him back regarding the billion-dollar expansion. Uncle Richard's eyes widened at the casual mention of billions. The same uncle who'd suggested I aim more realistically when I'd first entered finance. Sarah, he began again, his voice taking on the patronizing tone I knew so well. Family should stick together. Support each other. Surely you can see that managing the family portfolio would be the right thing to do. I leaned back in my chair, remembering all the family dinners where I'd been seated at the kids' table well into my 30s because I wasn't successful enough for adult conversations. You know what's interesting about success, Uncle Richard? It reveals people's true characters. When you thought I was nobody, I wasn't worth your time. Now that you know about my offshore accounts, suddenly I'm family again. That's not fair. We always considered you family. Really? I pulled up an email on my screen. Like when you emailed the entire family warning them not to invest in my risky career choices 5 years ago. The same year I acquired Rivera Group. He paled slightly. How did you? I own one of the largest investment firms in the country, I said quietly. Did you really think I wouldn't have copies of everything? My phone buzzed. Probably another update about our latest acquisition. The same kind of deal they'd never thought I was capable of handling. The family portfolio, I mused, watching him squirm. You know, I did try to help. 3 years ago I suggested investing in Asian tech markets. Victoria called it amateur hour, and Derek said I should stick to filing paperwork. We were wrong, he admitted. But now that we know now that you know I'm worth more than the entire family combined? I finished. Funny how money changes perspectives, isn't it? Another knock at the door. Grace again. Miss Thompson, your helicopter is ready for the Shanghai meeting. Uncle Richard's jaw actually dropped. Shanghai. Yes, I stood up, smoothing down my target suit. Some of us work for our success instead of inheriting it. Now if you'll excuse me. But the family portfolio is no longer my concern, I said firmly. Though I'm sure Victoria has some excellent insights about European markets to share. After all, she dresses like a proper financier, doesn't she? As I walked him to the door, I couldn't resist one final twist of the knife. Oh, and Uncle Richard? That building your office is in? Rivera Group just bought it. You might want to warn the family that rent's going up next quarter. The look on his face was worth every condescending remark they'd ever made about my clothes, my career, my life choices. Sometimes success isn't just about making money. Sometimes it's about watching people realize they bet on the wrong horse. 2 weeks after the offshore account revelation, I sat in my office reviewing an interesting proposal. The family's precious investment portfolio companies were struggling, and their stock prices had dropped significantly. A perfect acquisition opportunity. A message popped up from Grace. Your cousin Victoria is here. Says it's urgent. I smiled, remembering how Victoria used to forget to invite me to her exclusive investment seminars. Send her in. Victoria entered, her designer outfit somehow less impressive in my modernist office. The confidence she'd always worn like armor had cracked, revealing the insecurity beneath. Sarah, she started, clutching her Hermes bag like a shield. We need to talk about the family portfolio. We really don't, I replied, not looking up from my screen where I was reviewing the purchase order for her favorite company. It's falling apart, she admitted. The European investments lost another 40% this quarter. I finished. I know. I've been watching. She sank into a chair uninvited. How do you always know everything? Because while you were busy showing off your MBA from Harvard, I was actually learning how markets work. Amazing what you can see when people think you're nobody. My phone buzzed, a message from my Hong Kong office confirming our latest acquisition. Perfect timing. Sarah, please. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. The family's losing everything. Uncle Richard's had to sell his summer house. Derek's trust fund is almost empty. Even Mom. Aunt Margaret's still having trouble paying for her country club membership? I asked innocently. Shame about that rent increase on her boutique's building. Victoria's eyes widened. That was you. You bought the entire block. I bought most of downtown, I corrected. While you were all laughing about my Target suits, I was building an empire. Funny how that works. Grace appeared at the door. Miss Thompson? The board is ready for your announcement about the Hunter Group acquisition. Victoria gasped. Hunter Group? But that's my biggest investment. Was your biggest investment, I corrected. As of 10 minutes ago, it belongs to Rivera Group, along with most of the family portfolio's major holdings. I turned my laptop to show her the press release draft. Rivera Investment Group acquires Hunter Group in billion-dollar deal. You're destroying us, she whispered. No, Victoria. You did that yourselves. I'm just cleaning up the mess. I stood up, straightening my simple blazer. Would you like to know what really makes me different from you? She looked up, mascara smudging slightly. I never needed designer suits or fancy titles to prove my worth. Success isn't about looking rich. It's about being smart enough to let people underestimate you until it's too late. A notification popped up on my screen. The Hunter Group acquisition was complete. Victoria's last major client, now under my control. You know what the best part is? I continued. Every time you mocked my clothes, my job, my life, you were actually mocking the person who would eventually own everything you valued. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now. I checked my watch, a Timex that had survived every deal I'd ever closed. Now you get to experience what real work feels like. The family's trust funds are gone, their investments collapsed, their properties mortgaged. Time to earn a living. But we're family, she protested weakly. Funny how that word only matters when you need something. I pressed the intercom. Grace, please show my cousin out. And send in the board, we have an acquisition to celebrate. Victoria stood on shaky legs. Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I replied. But here's the thing about success, Victoria. It doesn't care about apologies. It only cares about results. As she left, I watched her designer heels stumble slightly on the polished floors of my empire. The same empire I'd built while they thought I was nothing. My phone buzzed again, Uncle Richard probably calling to beg for help with his mounting debts. I declined the call just as they'd declined my investment advice for years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's watching people realize that the person they underestimated now owns everything they took for granted. I straightened my target suit and headed to the boardroom. After all, I had an acquisition to announce, and a family legacy to dismantle one company at a time. Because in the end, it's not about the clothes you wear or the labels you flash. It's about the empire you build while everyone else is too busy showing off to notice. And my empire? It was just getting started. The next morning, the financial news was dominated by Rivera Group's latest acquisitions. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages from family members who suddenly remembered my existence. Derek sent a desperate text. Please, I need a job. Any position. I typed back. The mailroom is hiring. Time to learn what real work feels like. Aunt Margaret called in tears about her boutique's rent. Uncle Richard's voicemail begged for a meeting. Victoria's Instagram posts about luxury lifestyle consulting had gone quiet. But I was too busy to respond. In my Target suit and Timex watch, I was closing another billion-dollar deal. Because true power isn't about showing off wealth. It's about building it quietly while others waste time pretending to be rich. My assistant brought in the morning paper. The headline said it all. Rivera Group CEO Sarah Thompson, the silent billionaire who bought her family's empire.
I never thought I'd find myself standing in my office at Maxwell Industries on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, staring at a cardboard box that now held 5 years of my career. The corner office I'd earned through countless late nights and sacrificed weekends felt suddenly foreign, like I was looking at it through someone else's eyes. You have an hour to clear out, Robert Maxwell said from the doorway, his expensive suit perfectly pressed, his smile carrying that particular brand of corporate cruelty I'd become all too familiar with. Sarah will be taking over your position effective immediately. Sarah, my younger sister. The golden child who had never worked a day in her life until 6 months ago, when she decided she wanted to try her hand at the corporate world. Of course, she started directly as a senior manager, courtesy of her friendship with Catherine Maxwell, Robert's daughter. I carefully placed my awards into the box. Regional Manager of the Year, 3 years running. Top Performance in Sales, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Each accolade a testament to the dedication they were now discarding. Don't forget to hand over your building access card, Robert added, clearly enjoying this moment. We wouldn't want any unfortunate incidents. My building access card. I suppressed a smile as I pulled it from my lanyard, remembering the real estate deed safely stored in my home office safe. Phoenix Holdings LC, the company through which I owned this entire building, was my most carefully guarded secret. Not even my sister knew that her big brother was her landlord. Of course, Mr. Maxwell, I said, keeping my voice steady. Though I should remind you that the quarterly rent review is coming up. I'm sure you've received the notice from Phoenix Holdings. Robert waved his hand dismissively. Yes. Sarah will handle all that now. She's much more diplomatic than you. I'm sure she'll negotiate a better rate. If he only knew. The notice I'd sent yesterday, carefully timed for this exact moment, wasn't about a review. It was about the hidden clause in their lease agreement, the one that gave the building owner the right to terminate all tenancy with 24 hours notice if certain conditions were met. Conditions like failing to maintain proper corporate governance, such as wrongful termination. I placed my last personal item in the box, a small silver frame holding a photo of my grandfather. He was standing in front of this very building 30 years ago, back when it was just an abandoned warehouse in a forgotten part of the city. One day, he had told me, people will realize that true power isn't about having the biggest office. It's about owning the ground beneath their feet. I was 12 when he said those words. By 15, I was studying real estate law in my spare time. By 22, I had incorporated Phoenix Holdings using the money he left me. And by 25, I owned this building, leasing it to Maxwell Industries at a surprisingly reasonable rate. Not because I needed their money, but because I knew that one day, this moment would come. One more thing, Robert said as I picked up my box. The severance package we discussed. The board has decided it would be more appropriate to allocate those funds to Sarah's signing bonus. I'm sure you understand. Family first after all. Family first. How many times had I heard those words? When Sarah needed tuition money for her third attempt at college, leaving me to pay my own way. When she crashed her new car and needed a replacement while I took the bus to work. When she decided she wanted my job, and our parents called to tell me how selfish I would be to stand in her way. Of course, I said, walking past him, family first. The elevator ride down was quiet, but my mind was racing. By now, my lawyer would have received my message and started the proceedings. The eviction notice would be delivered first thing tomorrow morning, giving Maxwell Industries exactly 24 hours to vacate the premises. Their lease violation, my wrongful termination, would be clearly documented, along with a detailed record of every instance of workplace discrimination I carefully logged over the years. In the lobby, Catherine Maxwell was waiting with Sarah. My sister was already wearing a new designer suit, probably bought with her signing bonus, my signing bonus. "Oh good, you're leaving," Catherine said, not bothering to hide her disdain. "Daddy said you were being difficult about the office. Sarah needs to start redecorating right away." Sarah at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "I'll take good care of everything," she said, reaching out as if to pat my arm. I stepped back, adjusting my grip on the box. "I'm sure you will. Just like you took good care of my career." "Don't be dramatic," Catherine rolled her eyes. "It's just business, nothing personal." Nothing personal. Just like it wasn't personal when Sarah told the board I was emotionally unstable. Just like it wasn't personal when she spread rumors about my inappropriate relationship with clients. Just like it wasn't personal when she convinced her parents to support her bid for my position. "You're right," I said, walking toward the exit. "It's just business." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with the promise of more to come. I placed my box in the trunk of my car, not the newest model, not the flashiest, but paid for with my own money. As I closed the trunk, I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't look like someone who had just lost everything. I looked like someone who was about to win. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. "Documents ready. Notice will be served at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Are you sure about this?" I typed back a single word. Proceed. Driving home, I thought about tomorrow. About Robert Maxwell's face when he realizes that his company has 24 hours to vacate their headquarters. About Catherine's reaction when she learns that her father's reliable tenant is actually the person they just fired. About Sarah's expression when she understands that her new office isn't hers to redecorate after all. But mostly, I thought about my grandfather's words. True power isn't about having the biggest office. It's about owning the ground beneath their feet. As I pulled into my driveway, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, nothing that would suggest I owned one of the most valuable commercial properties in the city. Another text came through. This one from Sarah. "No hard feelings, right? You understand it's just business. Family dinner on Sunday." I left it unanswered. After tomorrow, there would be plenty of time for family discussions, but for now I had work to do. The documents my lawyer had prepared weren't just about eviction. They detailed every violation, every instance of discrimination, every questionable business practice I'd documented over the years. Maxwell Industries wasn't just losing their headquarters, they were about to face the kind of legal scrutiny that could bring down their entire empire. Inside my house, I went straight to my home office. Unlike the corporate space I just vacated, this room held my real achievements, the deed to the building, the incorporation papers for Phoenix Holdings, the carefully maintained records of every interaction with Maxwell Industries over the past 5 years. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. Time to set everything in motion. First, an email to all Maxwell Industries employees, scheduled for tomorrow morning. Due to circumstances beyond our control, all employees are advised to work from home until further notice. Building access will be restricted as of 9 a.m. tomorrow. Next, a press release also scheduled for tomorrow. Phoenix Holdings LC announces immediate termination of lease agreement with Maxwell Industries due to substantial violations of terms. Finally, a message to the building management team, instructing them to change all access codes and secure the premises at exactly 9 a.m. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. Sarah told us what happened. We're very disappointed in you. Why couldn't you just help your sister succeed? I placed the phone face down on my desk. Tomorrow they would understand. Tomorrow they would all understand that success built on betrayal is no success at all. The rain started again, drumming against my window as I finalized the preparations for tomorrow. In less than 24 hours, Maxwell Industries would learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the quiet one, the careful one, the one they thought they could discard. They thought they were firing an employee. Instead, they had just awakened a landlord who had been waiting 5 years for this very moment. And Sarah? Sarah would learn that some games are won long before the other players even know they're playing. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the rain fall in the growing darkness. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. 9 a.m. couldn't come fast enough. I arrived at the building at 8:30, parking across the street to watch the morning unfold. Maxwell Industries employees were already streaming in, coffee cups in hand, blissfully unaware that their workday was about to take an unexpected turn. At 8:45, I spotted Robert Maxwell's black Mercedes pulling into his reserved parking spot. Sarah's red BMW followed close behind. No doubt they had coordinated their arrival to make her first day as impressive as possible. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone lit up with a series of notifications. The security team confirming the access code changes. The building management system automatically locking all entrance points. And most importantly, a video call from my lawyer showing the eviction notice being served to a very stunned Maxwell Industries receptionist. I watched through my car window as chaos slowly spread through the building. Employees gathering in confused clusters near the entrance. Security guards explaining that their access cards no longer worked. And then the moment I had been waiting for. Robert Maxwell bursting through the front doors, his face red with rage, waving what I knew was the eviction notice. My phone rang. Robert Maxwell's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Sarah this time. I watched her pacing near the building entrance, phone pressed to her ear, designer suit already showing signs of distress. I declined the call. A third call, Catherine Maxwell. Decline. Then a text from Sarah. What did you do? I stepped out of my car, straightening my jacket. Time to make my entrance. The crowd parted as I approached, whispers spreading like wildfire. Robert Maxwell spun around, eviction notice crumpled in his fist. You, he snarled, realization dawning on his face. Phoenix Holdings. It's you. I smiled, feeling surprisingly calm. Good morning, Mr. Maxwell. I see you've received the notice regarding your lease termination. This is ridiculous, he shouted, waving the paper. You can't just evict us. We have rights. Actually, I pulled out a thick folder from my briefcase. I can. Section 7. Paragraph 3 of your lease agreement clearly states that any violation of corporate governance, including wrongful termination of employees, constitutes grounds for immediate lease termination. Would you like to review the documentation of my termination yesterday? Sarah stepped forward, her confidence visibly shaken. This is insane. You're just trying to get revenge because you couldn't handle me taking your job. Taking my job? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sarah, you didn't take my job. You conspired with Catherine to spread lies about me. You manipulated our parents into pressuring me to step aside. You stole my severance package. And now, I gestured to the building behind her. Now you have no job at all. Catherine pushed through the crowd, her perfect composure cracking. Daddy, do something. He can't do this to us. But Robert Maxwell was already on his phone, presumably talking to his lawyers. His face grew paler with each passing moment as he presumably learned what I already knew. The eviction was legally binding, and Phoenix Holdings had every right to enforce it. 24 hours, I announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's how long you have to vacate the premises. Any belongings left behind after that time will be considered abandoned property. 24 hours, Robert's voice cracked. We can't possibly move an entire company in 24 hours. We have clients, contracts, meetings. The same amount of time he gave me to clear out my office, I reminded him. Nothing personal. Just business, right? Sarah grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with panic. You can't do this to me. I'm your sister. I gently removed her hand. Family first, remember? That's what you always said. Well, this is me putting family first, my family company, Phoenix Holdings. The crowd of employees had grown larger, many filming the scene on their phones. I knew by noon this would be all over social media, but I didn't care. 5 years of careful planning had led to this moment. Oh, and one more thing, I pulled another document from my briefcase. This is a notice of legal action against Maxwell Industries for workplace discrimination, defamation, and breach of contract. My lawyers will be in touch. Robert lunged forward, his face purple with rage, but his daughter held him back. You'll regret this, he spat. I'll bury you in litigation. I smiled, thinking of the extensive documentation I had gathered over the years. Every email, every meeting recording, every piece of evidence carefully preserved. I look forward to discovery, I said calmly. I'm sure the board will be very interested in some of the documents I've collected. That got his attention. He knew exactly what I was referring to. The questionable accounting practices, the insider trading, the systematic discrimination. All of it meticulously documented and ready to be revealed. Now, I checked my watch, you have exactly 23 hours and 45 minutes to vacate the building. I suggest you get started. As I turned to leave, Sarah called out, her voice breaking. What about Sunday dinner? Mom and Dad are expecting us. I stopped and looked back at her. Tell him I'm sorry, but I'll be busy. I have a building to lease to a new tenant, one that understands the value of loyalty and proper business practices. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Moving trucks arrived, employees hurriedly packed their belongings, and executives huddled in corners making frantic phone calls. I watched it all from my lawyer's office across the street, where we were already fielding calls from potential new tenants. By midnight, most of Maxwell Industries had been cleared out. I stood in my old office. Sarah hadn't even had time to redecorate and looked out over the city lights. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from family members. Mom, how could you do this to your sister? Dad, we raised you better than this. Sarah, you've ruined everything. But there was one message that made me smile. A text from my grandfather's old number, saved by my grandmother. Your grandfather would be so proud. He always said you were the one who understood what real power means. The next morning, as Maxwell Industries scrambled to find new office space and deal with the PR nightmare, I sat in my home office reading the news coverage. Maxwell Industries evicted. Family drama turns corporate scandal screamed one headline. Sister act gone wrong. The ultimate corporate revenge declared another. But my favorite was from the business section. Phoenix Holdings emerges, the silent giant in real estate. The article detailed how my company had quietly acquired prime properties across the city, with the Maxwell Industries building being just one of many strategic investments. A week later, I received an invitation to a family dinner. Not from my parents, but from my grandmother. When I arrived at her house, she was sitting in her favorite chair, a familiar glint in her eye. Your grandfather kept a journal, she said, handing me a worn leather notebook. He wrote about you often, about how you were the only one who understood his lessons about true power and patience. I opened the journal, recognizing his handwriting. My grandson asked me today why I bought old buildings instead of new ones. I told him what my father told me. The real value isn't in what stands above the ground, but in owning the ground itself. He understood. He'll go far, that boy. Sarah called. My grandmother continued, pouring tea. She's moving to another city. Said she can't find work here anymore. Funny how things work out. I nodded, thinking of the offer I'd received that morning from a major tech company wanting to lease the building. Their proposal included plans to create a startup incubator in the lower floors, providing opportunities for young entrepreneurs. You know, my grandmother said thoughtfully, your grandfather always said revenge is a poor man's game. Real success isn't about getting even, it's about getting ahead. I smiled, thinking of the changes I was planning for Phoenix Holdings. It was never about revenge, I told her. It was about justice, and now it's about building something better. As I drove home that evening, I passed the building that had started it all. The Maxwell Industries sign had been removed, leaving a clean slate for whatever would come next. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, her first message in weeks that wasn't angry or accusatory. I understand now, she wrote, what you built, what you achieved. I'm sorry I tried to take it from you. I never realized how hard you worked for everything. I didn't respond immediately. Some lessons take time to sink in, and some wounds need more than words to heal. But as I parked in my driveway, I thought about my grandfather's words one more time. True power isn't about having the biggest office. It's about owning the ground beneath their feet. And now finally, everyone understood exactly what he meant. The vacuum cleaner hummed quietly as I moved it across the polished floors of Nexus Technologies' main office. To anyone watching, I was just another member of the cleaning staff, working the evening shift after all the important people had gone home. No one would guess that I, Olivia Chin, actually owned the entire building. I checked my watch, 7:30 p.m. The quarterly family dinner at my parents' house started at 8 o'clock. I'd have to hurry if I wanted to maintain my cover. After 5 years, I still couldn't believe I'd managed to keep up this charade. As I changed out of my janitor's uniform into a simple dress from Target, carefully selected to look appropriately unsuccessful, I thought about how it all began. Fresh out of college with a computer science degree and an inheritance from my grandfather, I had a choice to make. I could follow the traditional path my parents wanted, a safe corporate job, maybe at one of the big tech companies, or I could risk everything on my own vision. I chose the risk. My grandfather had left me $500,000 with a simple note: build something meaningful. Unlike my parents, who saw me as the disappointing middle child who would never measure up to my siblings, Grandpa had always believed in me. He knew about my secret projects, the apps I developed in college, the business plans I'd sketch out late at night. But I also knew my family. The moment they found out about my inheritance, they tried to control how I used it. My older brother Michael, the successful investment banker, would insist on managing the money. My younger sister Amanda, the golden child starting medical school, would argue that my little computer games were a waste of time. So I made a decision. I told no one about the inheritance. Instead, I announced that I'd taken a job as a janitor at a tech startup. The reaction was exactly what I expected. A janitor? My mother had exclaimed, nearly dropping her teacup. But you have a degree. What about all the money we spent on your education? It's just temporary, I'd said, playing the part of the uncertain graduate, until I figure things out. Michael had laughed, that condescending chuckle I'd grown to hate. Well, at least you'll be close to the tech industry. Maybe you can learn something while you're cleaning up after the real professionals. What they didn't know was that I had already purchased an old warehouse in the industrial district, converting it into modern office space. Nexus Technologies was born, with me as the anonymous founder operating through carefully constructed shell companies. I hired the best talent I could find, people who shared my vision for developing revolutionary automation software. But I knew my family would never understand. They measured success in designer labels and luxury cars. So I maintained my cover, working as a janitor in my own company, watching my creation grow from the shadows. Tonight's family dinner would be particularly challenging. Nexus had just closed a major deal. Our automation software was being adopted by one of the largest manufacturing companies in Asia. The contract was worth $40 million. The news was everywhere in the tech industry, but the founder of Nexus Technologies remained mysteriously private. I parked my old Honda Civic, another carefully chosen prop, in front of my parents' sprawling suburban home. Through the window, I could see Michael's Mercedes and Amanda's BMW already in the driveway. Taking a deep breath, I prepared myself for another evening of subtle jabs and condescending advice. "Olivia, you're late," my mother said as I walked in. She was wearing a new designer dress, probably bought specifically to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. "Sorry, Mom, had to finish my shift." I held up a bottle of cheap wine, another part of my costume. I brought wine. Michael, already seated at the dining table with his wife Jessica, smirked. "Let me guess. Under $10? Some of us work for a living," I replied mildly, taking my usual seat at the far end of the table. Amanda breezed in, her white coat still on as if she'd just left the hospital. "Speaking of work, did you hear about that tech company in the news? Nexus Technologies." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through headlines. "They just signed some massive deal. Their founder must be brilliant." I took a sip of water to hide my smile. "Oh? Not that you'd understand," Michael cut in. "Too busy pushing a mop to keep up with business news, right?" My father, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. "Actually, Olivia works at that company, doesn't she?" "As a janitor, Amanda emphasized, her tone making it clear what she thought of that. God, can you imagine? Being so close to success and still being... Well, she gestured vaguely at my Target dress and scuffed shoes. I thought about my office on the top floor of Nexus Technologies, the one I only used late at night when no one else was around. The one with the view of the city and the safe containing contracts worth millions. Yeah, imagine that. You know, Jessica chimed in, ever the helpful sister-in-law. Michael could probably get you an interview for an entry-level position at his bank. At least it would be a real job. My mother nodded enthusiastically. Yes, Olivia, you're not getting any younger. Don't you want to make something of yourself? If they only knew. The software I developed was revolutionizing industrial automation. Nexus Technologies was changing the way factories operated around the world. But sitting here, watching them pick apart my fake life, I realized something. Their approval had stopped mattering to me a long time ago. I'm fine where I am, I said quietly. Fine, Michael scoffed. You're 30 years old, working as a janitor, driving a car that's older than Amanda's medical degree, and living in that tiny apartment. Is that really what you want for your life? I thought about the penthouse I actually lived in, the one I only visited late at night to maintain my cover. The sports car in its private garage. The offshore accounts growing larger with each successful contract. Not everyone measures success the same way, Michael. That's just something unsuccessful people say to make themselves feel better. Amanda said, checking her perfectly manicured nails. I saw your boss the other day, you know, the founder of Nexus. They had a charity gala at the hospital. My heart skipped a beat. You did? Well, no, she admitted. No one actually saw them. They sent some representative instead, probably too busy counting their millions to show up in person. She laughed. Must be nice, right? Meanwhile, you're probably the one who had to clean up after the event. If she only knew that I'd watched the entire gala through the security cameras, making sure my donation was being put to good use. The hospital was building a new pediatric wing with Nexus Technologies money. Not that anyone knew it was really coming from their unsuccessful sister. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of similar comments. My mother's concerned looks, Michael's condescending advice, Amanda's not-so-subtle reminders of her own success. I sat through it all, playing my part, while inside I was counting down the minutes until I could return to my real life. As I was leaving, my father pulled me aside. Olivia, your mother and I have been talking. We'd like to help. Help. He pulled out a check. It's not much, just $5,000. Maybe you could take some courses. Try to get back into the tech industry properly. You're smart, honey. You're just not living up to your potential. I looked at the check, thinking about the contract I'd signed just that morning, worth 8,000 times that amount. Thanks, Dad, but I can't accept that. Please, Olivia. Let us help you make something of yourself. I hugged him, this man who had never quite figured out how to believe in me. I promised, Dad, I'm exactly where I need to be. Driving home in my old Honda, I thought about how tomorrow would change everything. Because tomorrow, Nexus Technologies would announce its IPO. Tomorrow, the mysterious founder would finally have to step into the light. Tomorrow, my family would learn that the daughter they'd been pitying had built an empire right under their noses. I parked in my usual spot behind the Nexus Technologies building, changing out of my poor clothes into the designer suit I kept in my office. Standing at the window of my real office, looking out over the city lights, I pulled out my phone and dialed my assistant. Emma, is everything ready for tomorrow's announcement? Yes, Ms. Chen. The press release is prepared, the board is notified, and a legal team has finalized all the documents. I smiled, thinking about the looks on my family's faces when they realized the truth. Perfect. Let's show them what a janitor can build. The morning of the IPO announcement, I arrived at Nexus Technologies earlier than usual. Not through the back entrance with my janitor's cart, but through the grand lobby in my Armani suit. The security guard did a double take before Emma rushed forward with my regular morning coffee. The press is already gathering outside, she whispered as we walked to the elevator. And your family? Should be watching the morning business news right about now. I smiled, imagining their reactions. Is everything set up in the conference room? Just as you requested. Live streaming to all major networks, press packets ready, and she hesitated. Your family has been added to the VIP guest list. The conference room was packed when I arrived. Reporters filled the seats, cameras flashed, and at the back, I spotted my family, all of them. Michael in his expensive suit, Amanda still wearing her white coat, my parents looking confused but curious. They'd received mysterious VIP invitations to the Nexus Technologies IPO announcement, probably assuming it was because Amanda had treated someone important at the hospital. I stood behind the stage, listening as our board chairman began the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this historic day. For 5 years, Nexus Technologies has revolutionized industrial automation under the leadership of a visionary founder who, until today, has remained anonymous. That changes now. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Nexus Technologies, Ms. Olivia Chen. The room fell silent as I walked onto the stage. Then the chaos erupted. Cameras flashed frantically. Reporters jumped to their feet. But I was watching my family. Michael's jaw dropped, his face turning an interesting shade of red. Amanda's phone slipped from her fingers. My mother grabbed my father's arm for support. "Good morning," I said into the microphone, my voice steady. For those who don't know me, I'm Olivia Chen. 5 years ago, I founded Nexus Technologies with a vision to revolutionize industrial automation. Today, as we announce our IPO, our company is valued at over $400 million. The questions came rapid fire. Why had I remained anonymous? How had I built the company? What were my plans for the future? I answered each one calmly, watching my family's expressions shift from shock to disbelief to something approaching horror. After the formal announcement during the champagne reception, they finally approached me. Michael spoke first, his voice strained. You're the founder, but you're a janitor." I took a sip of champagne. Actually, I just pretended to be a janitor. I wanted to build something on my own, without anyone's interference or judgment. But all those times, Amanda stammered. The cheap clothes, the old car, a cover, like my tiny apartment, which I only use for storage, by the way. I live in the penthouse on 5th Avenue. My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell us? We're your family." "Are we?" I asked quietly. "Because for the past 5 years, you've mocked me, pitied me, and treated me like a failure. Not once did you ask if I was happy. Not once did you consider that maybe I had a plan. We were trying to help you." My father protested. "No," I corrected him. "You were trying to force me to live life your way. Remember that check you offered me last night, Dad? To help me make something of myself." I pulled the check from my pocket and handed it back to him. I signed a $40 million contract yesterday morning, but it wasn't the money that mattered. It was building something meaningful, something that helps people. That's what Grandpa taught me. Michael's face darkened. "Grandpa? What does he have to do with this?" "He left me an inheritance, $500,000. That's what started all this." I gestured around the room. "He believed in me, even when none of you did." "That's not fair," Amanda protested. "We just wanted what was best for you." "No, you wanted me to be what you thought was best. There's a difference." Emma appeared at my elbow. "Ms. Chen, the investors are waiting in the main boardroom." "Thank you, Emma." I turned back to my family. "If you'll excuse me, I have a company to run." "Wait," my mother called out. Can we talk about this? Maybe over dinner?" I paused. "You know what the funny thing is? I had dinner with you every month for 5 years. You had plenty of chances to talk to me, to actually listen. Instead, you spent those dinners reminding me what a disappointment I was." "We didn't know," my father began. "Exactly. You didn't know because you never bothered to look past your own expectations." I straightened my jacket. "Now, if you'll excuse me, this janitor has a board meeting to attend." As I walked away, I heard Michael mutter, "She's right. We never really saw her." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Nexus Technologies' IPO was a massive success, our stock price soaring beyond even the most optimistic projections. The press couldn't get enough of the story, the secret billionaire who worked as a janitor in her own company. My family tried to reach out multiple times. My mother left tearful voicemails about how proud she was. Michael sent emails suggesting investment opportunities. Amanda wrote a long text about how inspirational my story was. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on what mattered: running my company, developing new technologies, creating jobs. I donated a significant portion of my wealth to establishing scholarships for young entrepreneurs, especially those who, like me, had ideas that didn't fit the traditional mold. 3 months after the IPO, I sat in my office, my real office, looking at an old photo of my grandfather. He was smiling that knowing smile of his, the one that said he could see something in me that others missed. Ms. Chen, Emma knocked on my door. Your family is here. Again. They don't have an appointment, but they're asking to see you. I thought about all the family dinners, all the condescending comments, all the years of being the disappointment. But I also thought about what my grandfather would say. Send them in. They filed in awkwardly, my parents first, then Michael and Amanda. They looked different somehow, smaller perhaps, or just more uncertain. Olivia, my mother began, we've been doing a lot of thinking. And feeling pretty terrible, Amanda added. Michael nodded. We were wrong. About everything. I gestured for them to sit. Yes, you were. But that's not why I agreed to see you. It's not, my father asked. No, I agreed to see you because after everything, you're still my family. And maybe, just maybe, we can start over. But this time, you need to see me for who I am, not who you think I should be. My mother wiped away tears. We'd like that. Very much. Good, I said, standing up. Then let's start with a tour. I want to show you what a janitor can build when someone believes in her. As I led them through the offices of Nexus Technologies, past the developers working on our next innovation, past the awards and accolades lining the walls, I thought about how success isn't always about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who doubted you the most can become your biggest supporters. Once they learn to see past their own expectations and recognize the power of believing in someone's dreams. Even if those dreams come with a janitor's cart,